People like
Yeah,
you, Marnix. People like you.
well, I get I get contacts from people I haven't seen for years. You know, they've seen our little chats.
Oh, great. So hi everybody. This is
I
Scott Park
haven't had
Phillips.
death threats so far.
No, good. I'm glad. This is Marnix Wells, who fortunately hasn't gotten any death threats recently, and we're gonna. This is part two of last time we talked pretty exclusively about the origins of the Tai Chi Classics texts and the predecessors of them, and this time we're going to actually dive into the texts themselves. And I thought one thing that we didn't cover last time that we should just sort of clarify is that there's a wide debate. um, I wouldn't even call it a debate. It's sort of there are a lot of assertions about what internal martial arts means, and I have made the assertion that it has a very clear meaning in cultural terms associated with the theatrical and religious tradition, which is that it is the combination of the golden elixir with martial skills. And one of the outcomes of that, one of the fruitions, you might say, of that kind of practice is golden bell. But the kind of finesse of Tai Chi is another. And the but what are some of the other explanations people have for what is internal martial arts? Just so we can cast them aside.
Some other, um, well, in Buddhism, actually, it can have kind of the Vajrayana, the external could be those people who have left the home to become monks, and the internal could be those who practice at home.
Well, they have this in Taoism too, right? Chujia.
Yeah, like true, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
of course.
and then in that the famous stele, where is it talking about Johnson cheese, and it's kind of saying, well, like the Wajai is kind of like hard and the Neja is soft, like what we call the internal now. Although Tai Chi Chuan is not actually mentioned as such, and it's certainly quite questionable whether there was anything corresponding to that.
So I mean, the problem with that, of course, is that all Chinese martial arts have some softness in them, and all have some hardness in them.
Yeah.
And so it's not a very good defining characteristic, although it does. If your orientation is golden elixir, then you're just saying, oh, martial arts are normally hard, we reverse everything, because the major characteristic of the golden elixir is to reverse or invert or flip something on its head. You practice Tai Chi the way you practice handstands. It's a different it's a different orientation. And so I would just argue that that was actually just a stand-in. When they made that statement, they were just avoiding mentioning the golden elixir directly, so they mentioned the softness. Of course, softness is a Taoist precept too. Softness is a Taoist precept.
Yeah, it is. The oldest Shaolin boxing classic also talks about soft, though
Yes, the sinew changing classics. Exactly.
And
exactly.
yeah, like, and you know, like people like Wang Shujin, Bagua, I mean, they would say like it's like the character in the Book of Change, you know, the interpenetration of the yin and yang, like the Gigi with the or the Weiji perhaps, but either one, they've got the interlocking soft or broken and whole lines,
Yeah.
Totally sort of blended together. That is the ideal, and I think that's pretty well much where the Chen Tai Chi is too. Some of the maybe some of the other schools, the later schools, they emphasize the soft more, but some of those maybe are less martial. And when I mean, when you get
there.
when you get the martial artists, you know, they would generally have not only soft, you know, they will have soft and hard.
Well, there's two miracles I can do, or we'll call them magic tricks, right? And one is to seem unbelievably heavy, strong. You touch me and you're like, whoa, how could you be so heavy? And the other one is I'm punching and you can't figure out where the force is coming from. So you could call it light or soft. And these are not that unusual, although I don't know how many people can do them so clearly, but they are. And the exciting thing, one of the reasons I'm continuously excited is I keep getting better at these tricks. But they are illusions. But you can use illusions in fighting, of course, just like you can use tricks. Something I would actually add to that, which is that, you know, in Western magic tricks, you know, like we have card trick magicians, right, who say, hey, you know, watch me do this trick. Can you see it? I'm gonna do the trick. Look over here, check it out. And then you're like, whoa, how'd he do it? But you know it's a trick, but you still have no idea how he did it. And you're looking, you're trying to figure it out, right? And they're saying, look, try to figure it out, right? And then we have the card shark, who is dealing off the bottom of the deck and has all kinds of sleight of hand things, is hiding a card somewhere. Who knows how they do it? They've got all kinds of tricks, but they just look like they're dealing. It just looks like a normal thing. So because they don't want to be caught, right? Because they're playing poker. And the martial arts are the same. You have guys going, no, I am just a pure martial artist. I'm just fighting. You know, that's it. Just great technique, train really hard, you'll get it. You know, if you submit to me, basically. And but they actually have magic tricks, but they don't ever show them. And then there's the other type that's like, hey, I have chi. You know, can you feel it? You know, like, can you figure out?
Well, the Tai Chi Classic, you know, it says that, you know, if you can be really soft, then you can be really hard.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's go to
and
it.
Another way to look at the golden elixir.
Yeah.
Oh.
No, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
Okay. I think this is not in this part.
Oh, you want to find it right away? Yeah. What were you going to say about
well, no, we don't have to. But so what are we doing here?
Oh, I just wanted you to finish what you were about to say about the golden elixir.
Okay. Well, I'm just looking at the. Can we take off the classic?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, the Jindan. It's also associated with, you know, being able to make the body kind of like invulnerable.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And is a curious thing, but that is pretty much like the Vajra.
And Jin Gang is the Chinese word for that.
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Yeah, because Jin Gang in Chinese, the translation of Vajra, which is adamantine.
Right.
In other words, it's something extremely hard, like a diamond.
Yeah.
That is, it sounds, it's very similar in sound to Jindan, Jingang and Jindan. And
And they
they
both
kind of
have the same
merge.
Jin character.
Yeah, they've got both the gold Jin character, which I mean is also the generic for metals actually. But so in other words, gold is the kind of the generic for all metals, or in this case for something which is just incredibly hard and strong. So to make the invulnerable body, you convert the body into a sort of Vajra, to Jingang or Jindan, and again through the breathing meditation.
Yeah, and this tradition also exists in India, right? So this is like quite clear that this tradition still exists in India, and that
or in Hinduism
or Jainism, or
right,
where and that the term Vajra is the Sanskrit term for thunder and lightning.
Yeah, thunderbolt. Yeah,
right. And in fact
that's right.
That's why earlier when we were talking before we were on, I mentioned Mark Muhlenbeld's dissertation, which is on Garuda, but it's also on Vajra and on the Damaru, the whole there's all these. This is the mudra from Indian dance, right, of the Damaru, which looks like which makes the sound of thunder, right?
Oh, the hand drum. Yeah, the little.
And this is the Vajra, and this is the Vajra, which is just the open palm, right? It is actually the mudra. For thunder.
Well, then and you have the Tai Chi Ruler, so-called Tai Chi Ruler, which is something which you can also do these kind of movements. It's a kind of short stick, rounded, and it's very similar in shape to the typical Vajra as depicted in art or sculpture, or in fact reproduced in metal form, which is central to Tibetan Buddhism,
and is a magic, magic tool.
And it's also a way of cultivation, probably to achieve this state.
Right. Well, the other name for Tibetan Buddhism is Vajrayana.
Vajra, yes, that's it. The way of the Vajra.
Yeah.
In effect. Yeah.
So these things are much closer than sort of contemporary Chinese would have you believe.
Indeed, yes. They're quite international, really.
I read an interesting article by Joseph Atler, who wrote the wonderful book on Indian wrestling, where he just takes on the question is Dao Yin yoga? Can we is it possible to have a good conversation about that? And he says that, look, places like Dunhuang are, and there are many others like Dunhuang where the outer edges of India and China. They were neither India nor China, and that's where these things met, and maybe where they came from. They were because these are secret teachings, or at least intimate teachings, esoteric teachings, yoga and yogas, hatha yoga and Dao Yin or Dao Yin are they're things people will go out into the mountains or way off into the west or east or north, or get on a boat and to go learn, to go find out about. So of course they happened. The actual centers where these things were the same thing could just be places that we don't think of as India or China.
Yeah, well, I mean, I mean, it's well known that the Aryan, the Sanskrit speaking peoples, with whom, the Vajra was an essential, as the thunderbolt of the weapon of the thunder god, who was
Indra.
kind of
Indra, yes.
yeah, exactly, yeah, Indra. That's kind of the core of this civilization, which somehow came out of Central Asia and invaded India, and also somehow permeated into China somewhat later. Although we don't know a lot about maybe the origins of Chinese civilization as well, because we know that the Northwest was kind of must have been a gateway from early times. The transmission of the chariot, the bronze, all these things. I mean, they're kind of Pan-Asian, Pan-Asian or Pan-Eurasian.
Yeah. Obviously, in the Sogdians, the major traders through that region, sort of disappeared. Their capital was Samarkand. This is later, but they were traders probably much earlier, and probably incredibly important in connecting China and Rome, for instance.
Yeah.
And this
that was the first one belt, one.
Yeah, they want to bring back the belt, but Marnix, I think we're both hitting on something as sort of what we might call each other, lateral thinkers or something. That the part of the problem here, right, is that we end up with sort of timelines, civilizational timelines that are much too simplistic for what actually happened. I mean, Victor Marr had an essay in his old Platonic, Sino-Platonic papers. I don't know if you ever saw that, but he had one about how the original Chinese Tiangong, the calendar of branches and leaves, is actually the Phoenician alphabet. It's actually the Phoenician alphabet. It's what it is. It's like almost one-to-one correspondence.
Well, I mean, the Phoenicians, I think they kind of invented the alphabet, but they were springing off the Egyptian simplification of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. But I didn't. Yeah, is the relation to the Chenggan, is that kind of substantiated?
Well, he put it in that category of there's nobody who studies this, so nobody who is actually, like, there's no department of studying Phoenician influence on China, so let me just put it in this collection of papers that eventually someone will come back and look at. But and nobody has, as far as I know. But the point is that they just laid them out side by side, and you go, it's unequivocal. You can't argue with it once you see them lined up side by side. They're too close. But obviously, the Chinese didn't conceptualize written language as an alphabet, and so their early writing diverged dramatically from what the Phoenicians were doing. But they had the alphabet. They just used it for something else. They used it for a calendar.
Well, they have the 10 heavenly stems and the 12 earthly branches.
Right.
And they kind of overlap when you put them side by side.
Right.
And they come together at 60. So you get the 60 sexagenary cycle
of
which
Jupiter.
Is the base. Huh?
Of Jupiter, of the planet
Is that
Jupiter.
Is that the rotation of Jupiter?
Yeah, it's 60 years. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So that, I mean, that has always, you know, for the last 3,000 years at least, has been the basis of the Chinese calendar.
Yeah. Pretty interesting, isn't it? They're
Yeah.
connected way back. All right.
Yeah.
Now, can we go? I know our poor, you know, I promised our audience that we would look at the Tai Chi classics, but you and I have already looked at them. So we should be able to just go through it really fast. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Let's try.
Okay.
All right. So Tai Chi, born of Wuji, something like that. It's the mother
Yep.
of yin and yang.
The black hole. Yeah. Undifferentiated chaos.
Yeah. I originally argued that this is backwards. The next line, right? So is you know, is born. It's yin yang. Yeah, it's
Yin Yang's mother.
and then
Yeah.
in movement
Divides.
differentiates and
Yeah,
stillness consolidates.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's actually the opposite of what happens, and that's why this is telling us, hey, this is the golden elixir. Expect everything to be in opposites, because in stillness, the Jing and Qi differentiate. In movement, they mix together. But the cultivation of the golden elixir is to be able to move with them differentiated. So the Jing and Qi are separate in motion. But the normal way we move is Jing and Qi mix. And when we're still, they differentiate. So that's my argument here about this. We went into these a little bit. What you know, what's the relationship? There's this character G here, right?
The ultimate sort of extreme.
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, and so this character, which is, you
Pole.
know, what is it, dancing fox or something? So somebody dancing with foxtails means not.
It could be seen as a kind of like a funeral pyre with fire at the bottom and stacked wood on top. So fire consuming wood and ending up with nothingness.
So you have the extreme of nothingness gives birth to the Tai Chi, the great extreme, which I do believe we talked about last time already.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
All right. So it's the, you know, whatever that is. Let's see.
This is kind of like Neo-Confucian philosophy to some degree.
Sure, without excess or inefficiency.
Yeah.
The Jushi influence.
Don't go too far, but don't fall short.
Bend, follow, extend. Yeah, the when the other is hard, I am soft. Something like that.
It's called. They call it so-called running. So like motion or literally running. Whether that would imply, I suppose it would imply retreats, evasion perhaps.
To go along with.
Then but yeah, you go along and
adhering.
It's so literally when you get behind the person, or you turn them so that they're sort of backwards, and that's called sticking. If we kind of read it literally.
Which one? Where is the word you would translate as stick here?
Here, Nian, and then you've got bei, meaning back, or like.
Am I in the right line here?
Backward, second line. No, second end of second line. Yeah, right there.
Here.
Yeah. So you've got it. It seems to me like you follow, and you get behind, or you turn them in such a way by sticking. So in other words, you kind of manipulate their movement so that you're controlling it by softness.
Exactly. That's exactly what happens. All right. Well, let's see. Where does this get interesting? Let's see. So I to quick movements, I respond quickly. To slow movements, I follow slowly. Though the transformations, I'm just reading Louis Swaim's translation because it's right here. Although transformations have innumerable strands, this principle makes one thread. So you have the thread concept there.
Yeah. Confucius said there's one principle pervading his teaching, which is like one pervading or one thread, like one thread.
Oh, this is thread right here.
Well, that's kind of like one penetrating principle, or one pervading element.
Right, transformations.
So in other words, they're all connected. It's all continuous. There is no, no break. Well, the principle, that's the principle. The principle is it's connected. It's basically, the one principle pervades.
Which character is thread here?
It's not exactly thread. It's kind of like Guan is.
It's not a thread. Yeah.
Guan could be to translate like penetration.
Okay.
Guan, something like.
It's important just because obviously thread is the word for jing, like a classic, and also a sutra.
Yeah.
And all of that is thread, and so I.
Well, only by implication. It doesn't actually say thread.
Cool.
The 10,000. Oh, sorry, the 10,000 or myriad duan. It could be seen like points or ends, the end of a thread, perhaps. So there are. You could say there are sort of myriad strands, if you like, but they're all kind of connected. Well, the principle.
And so then if you do this, you get this. This is the first fruition we see described, right?
Yeah. And I've always sort of found this expression rather odd. That gradually you get realization of understanding Jing.
Right. I would argue that it's actually, again, it's telling you to do the reverse. That once you understand this thing, you will understand that you don't ever want to do it. You just want your opponent to do it. That's the trick, is to get your opponent to do it, because then you can control them.
Okay, if you've got realization. Okay, woo. Okay. Now, if you have realization, why do you also need understanding? Doesn't, I mean, you know, given that Chinese is pretty economical with words, especially classical Chinese is pretty economical with, you know, words. If you have realization, why do you need understanding as well? I mean, say, you know, if I say I understand, okay, I realize what you're talking about. I don't need, you know, I don't have a need for two words to kind of express almost the same thing, perhaps.
Yeah, but so it's like the realization that, well, because it's in the next line too, right? Here you have again, if you know, from this
Yeah,
Dongjin,
you do.
you get Shunming,
You do.
Bright gods, or the god of brightness.
Well, the thing here, I think here we're on the edge of kind of, there's a kind of literary or literate culture based on the classics. And then there is a kind of illiterate culture, which is perhaps more associated with the kind of low life, with your boxers and maybe actors and, you know, people of that ilk. Now, these people might not be able to write. So when we're talking about realization, we're using a word which is kind of, you know, it's kind of upper echelons, you know, like sort of enlightened monks in Buddhism, or perhaps scholars. But when we're talking about Jing, this is something you don't really get very much in the literary level. In fact, the Chen, as I noticed in the Chen classics, the Chen use the word essence,
Jing,
which is
Jing instead of Jin.
that's right. I mean, it's a Jing in. I mean, it could also be pronounced Jin, but
Yeah.
it's a different tone. But Jing and Jing. But Jing is essence. Jing is kind of like power, whatever this word means.
This is the
Yeah. So this word is kind of, it's not very classical. It might, you know, it does come in some texts, but it's pretty rare. And so it's kind of a bit out of place with this sort of, to my mind, this what is up to now been a sort of pretty much a sort of I Ching based or Neo-Confucian based high philosophy. And suddenly now we're coming into a different kind of area. It doesn't quite mesh to my mind.
All right. Well, so, but this again is a kind of fruition, right? It says, so here's my interpretation of this: is it's saying
Shunming is also an interesting one,
right? So Shunming is this term which is in early medicine refers to kind of a you know, the you that's you when you aren't there. It's kind of like, you know, the perfect you, that your body, when everything is perfectly aligned in time, you become it. It's like your
right? Well,
hidden perfection or something.
okay. Now look,
Ming being bright,
perhaps
Sun being God.
Yeah, that's right. It's a kind of, you could translate it, certainly in the early period, you could certainly translate this as divine luminary. In other words, it's almost like you became a star. Literally, you became a star, or the star, was incarnated in you.
Yeah.
So you are actually, you have got kind of divine luminescence or illumination. It's kind of
So
this is up
I'm
in the
suggesting
astral plane. Hmm?
that I could be wrong, but I keep suggesting here that the idea of comprehending Jin means that you're actually you can use it or not use it. And and in fact what you do is the other person, you manifest Jin in the other person, and then you use it against them. You get them to do the trick. You just have a soft hand. You don't really do anything once you
Yeah.
have the realization.
Uh,
And then it says you can't use it. Can't use it unless you practice a lot. Something like that.
You see now, okay, the last line, we're back in the kind of near Confucian element. When it's almost like a sort of Zen breakthrough. Suddenly, you can Hora Guantong. You can, in other words, suddenly you kind of penetrate.
Yes, you're
Guantong.
Yeah.
Sort of you go, not just penetrate, but you go tong, you go all the way through. Right. Yeah. So but my mind don't, I mentioned the sort of the possible ambiguity on Jing with Jing. And also it seems like dong, understanding, is a slightly different tone, but it's also very similar to the word move for dong or motion. And it did occur to me that if this came from a fairly, half literate manuscript, or at least parts of it did, was there a possible conflation with dong meaning movement? So in other words, a realization of moving Jing. I don't know. I mean, that's just off the top of my head.
I like it. What about even like terms like shit? So one of the things that Shunming, George Xu said to me is that you don't you replace all of your Jin with shi. What is later in this text talks about is often translated as postures, but it's or potentiality, or dynamics. You've translated
dynamic. Yeah, that's right.
That in fact what you're doing is you're replacing Jin with dynamics, and that so
yeah,
it's more like something you trigger.
Yeah,
Something you trigger in the other person,
it's like,
empowering yourself.
Yeah, that's right. You kind of, you could say you release it, or you use it in some way without actually creating it. You tap into what was potentially there.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So it's one of the things that I find so exciting about Tai Chi is that this constant discovery. And for me, the constant reversals, like, oh, that's what I thought it was. Oh no, I was convinced I was a master in my 20s, but I'm not doing anything like what I was doing in my 20s now. All right, here we have Shu in the next line, one of my favorite words. which means fake, but can also mean empty. It's a key term in theatrical literature, because the average scholar never got an appointment, and so they would write plays instead, and they would go to plays, and in fact the theater parts of a city of where the theater was called Scholar Town, because it was full of scholars who had not got appointments. And there was the common, probably the most common,
Poor scholars, I expect.
probably the most common trope in theater was that my life is fake. My life is shu. The 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 scholar on the stage is more Jun, is more real than me. Right. And so they would play that out and as a theme. And so I think that this term shu here is a, it's just a intense, it's a profound way of starting this sentence here, which is, you want to go ahead and translate this?
Well, this is this is again a bit of a minefield. I think we looked at this before.
Oh yeah.
I mean, ling can be lead or lapel, collar.
So these are okay, so this is Jin. Everybody's already seen that one, same character up here.
Ling.
This is Shu or Jing.
Shu Ling, yeah.
Yeah.
Shu Ling, Ding, Jing.
Jing.
So Ding is top of the head. Could also be like headbutting, or in this case, does it refer to kind of drawing up the, the energy along the spine up to the crown? Could mean the crown of the head. And then our friend Jing again. Energy, power.
So I would say completely empty your body of Jin all the way up to the top.
Yeah, so if you take the well, you're taking Shu Ling as a kind of verb, or you sort of emptily lead out the butting power. Is that how you take it?
Yeah, the headbutting. Yeah, take the headbutting power out. You don't want to be a goat. Stop being a goat. It's telling you, don't be a goat. Get that out of your fingers, get it out of your shoulders, get it out of everywhere. That's force against force. Get rid of it. What's the next line? By the way, I should say my position is not the most common view. Most people would say it just means bring the Jin up to the top of your head. All right, what's the next line?
Well, that could also mean sort of empty it out in the sense of,
so
by leading it up, you're kind of taking it out.
This is Song Chi Song, bring
maybe taking it out of the body.
Chi,
but then on the other hand,
to the Dantian though.
So you've got one thing maybe going up and the other thing going down. So the breath is going down, the breath energy is going down to the Dantian, the Elixir field, and the Jing is going up.
Right. So if we take the risk of calling this Jing as in essence, or then we have a picture of the golden elixir happening in the Dantian. It's, you couldn't miss that, right? If you were a scholar and you'd seen a lot of plays about the golden elixir, or you'd read some Taoist text, you couldn't miss that the implication there that there's Jing and Qi distilling.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, this is standard sort of Taoist meditation, right? These elixir fields. In other words, the elixir field being below the navel, the point below the navel.
But that's highly controversial. I mean, I think there was, when they first got computers back in and they started and they were able to read Chinese characters, I think someone did a study of 1,000 texts to try and find out where the Dantian was. And they couldn't find it. It was like there's too many explanations of where it is. It's not a single point. That's just one take.
Yeah, but yeah, in this context, in the martial sort of cultivation, I'm not sure, I guess Zhang Sang Feng text, it's like, you know, this is where your you know, where your sort of phantom pregnancy is going to take place.
Yeah. So
you know, you're going to actually, it's like you're actually kind of nourishing a child or a, you know, a baby in your body.
One way to understand that, Marnix, is you know, I also from George Xu, like there was a practice he taught us at one time called waking the baby, right? So and it's happening in this region down here in your torso, basically lower torso, and you separate two bodies. So when you're the basic functioning muscle bone body that you have is very, very quiet. That is, has no jin in it or has no intent in it. You can then connect a kind of inner body. There's some other stuff that moves. It's maybe an older body, more like a some kind of sea slug or, you know, or a jellyfish or something. And you can connect that to the space around you. And you move the space and it moves the inner body first and the outer body follows. So you can.
Is this like the Xian Tian and Hou Tian, the before heaven and after heaven?
Again, it's which is another, yeah, or inside of time, outside of time, that, you know, it's a way, it's a pathway into dream practice as well. In that sense, that the separation of the two bodies. I find this a useful training idea, but I don't think it's I think it's a very limited view of the golden elixir function. So I don't actually think that's implied here, but I do think that that idea of a second body, that you grow in a sense, you grow it.
There's an astral body.
No, I mean, actually, when we're talking about just Jing, like the physical body, there's an inner body that can move around inside. So you can create an illusion. So it looks like I'm pushing you this way, but because my inner body's moving the other way, all the forces are different. So they're really difficult to counter.
Yeah. How about chakra? I mean, Dantian is kind of a chakra, isn't it? I mean, this is what the Chinese use to translate the Indian. The idea that you have chakras right down your center, the wheels, literally, which are kind of centers of. Sometimes they even have their own deity inside them.
Yeah, like keep going. I was going to show. Well, sorry, I shouldn't be on here. Somebody sent me something. I was going to show a. Let's see if I can find it quickly. I'm just going to show an image of Jun Wu. Should be right here. Why Why do I have so many images of Jim?
I have the same. I have a similar problem.
Oh, not cool.
This is your karma.
Here we go. There's so many of these. Let's look at that one.
Oh yeah, there.
You can see it.
Yes, Jim Wu. Yeah.
You
Oh,
see
he
his
looks very
feet.
elegant.
You see his feet are sucking in, and the
I do.
posture
I do see that.
is actually the posture. He always looks like this. It's because he's doing it's better known in the West through as part of tantric Buddhism, but you actually suck in to breathe. You breathe in the kidneys, and the kidneys suck your feet in when you breathe this way. So it's actually not, I wouldn't call it breathing in the belly. It's more breathing into the kidneys that causes your feet to come in. And he's frozen in this position, is the idea.
Interesting. He's got armor on underneath his. Secondly, he's got a halo, which is kind of like introduced by Buddhism, I think, into China. And secondly, finally, he's got the bare feet, which is normally not, it's a kind of very un-Chinese thing to have bare feet.
Well, it's not that it's un-Chinese. It represents that he's a child, or that he's a spirit of the, what do you call it? What they call, some calls red hat, what Christopher Schipper originally called red hat Taoists. So Taoists that are trance mediums. So spirit mediums are always barefoot, or almost always barefoot, right? They use the
I mean, well, of course, the barefoot doctor, for example.
Right.
I mean,
barefoot. Can you see that? There's a spirit medium, and he's got bare feet there.
Yeah.
And these are the flags. This is Jun Wu's flag, right?
But I mean, I mean, it's a kind of thing which, I mean, if I was to do, have bare feet or even flip flops, Chinese would say no, that's wrong. You have to have shoes. You have to wear shoes. It's a kind of very ingrained thing. Unless I suppose you can't afford shoes, you're actually practically a beggar, or you're kind of like an Indian god. Indian gods almost always seem to have bare feet, I think, in depictions.
Yeah.
As you say, also mediums. Well, certain types of mediums, like the sort of martial medium, I suppose.
I was looking for a different image of Jun Wu, and of course, whenever you're doing these kinds of things, you can't find the one you're looking for. Let me see if I can find it really quickly here. I got a lot of good pictures.
But there's the there's the boy, Sudana, I think.
This one.
There's the boy. I think he represents Sudana, who went to 53 different teachers to get enlightenment. But I mean, that comes from one of the Buddhist sutras, the Avatamsaka Sutra, I think.
Far out.
And he's doing the namaste, the typical Buddhist and Hindu greeting.
Yeah, that's from a temple in North China. That's from Hannibal Taub's collection. Uh,
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
think I
Oh,
think
here's
I
a
know
Jin
that. I
Gong.
think I've been
Here's a
to
Jin
that
Gong, by
temple.
the way. We were talking
Hmm?
about Jin Gong. We are talking about Jin Gong. Here's an image of a Jin Gong from Southeast Asia.
Oh, I like his spike
Yeah,
and
it's on a
his
pole. Yeah,
wheel,
yeah.
and
Fire
he's got
wheels.
something on behind his back. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, he's certainly got the confusion scarf
Oh, I
of
see. No, that's a pole with
that's
a
right.
and at the end it's got this hand holding a spike. Yeah,
Yeah, which you see all
uh,
over Taiwan.
right. Um, yeah. Well, he's yeah. Of course, that's another uh, usage of the word Jinggang, because actually the full term is uh, Vajrapani, isn't it?
Yeah.
The one who's holding the Vajra. In other words, the guardian of the Buddhist temple, or guardians. They always they're called Jinggang in China, but the full term, I think, from Sanskrit is Vajrapani.
Yeah.
He who holds the
Yeah,
Jinggang.
pani means hand, right?
And in this case, he's called the Fumo Jinggang. He is the one who subdues the Maya,
Illusion.
the satanic god of illusion or deception,
Yeah,
um,
sure.
who was overcome by the Buddha.
But notice he's also
Um,
barefoot and he has a tiger skin. So there's the all of those that cosmology there. And this is also Vajra.
yeah, I see that he's got the tiger skin skirt. Yeah,
Yeah.
mind you, that I don't think is that in. I don't think that's an Indian feature with the tiger skin.
Uh well
Maybe wrong
Shiva
here. Hmm?
Shiva of course sits on a tiger skin.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, all right. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I really thought I was going to find that there. Um, now I've forgotten what I was looking for, so we better go back. Um, I'm worse than you, Marnix. It's really.
Look, can we get back on track?
Yeah. My point was, but I think I made the point. Is the point was that we there is a tantric element here too of and the this idea that the breathing might be actually drawing that when you sink the chi to or bring the chi to the kidneys actually draws the legs inward.
Hmm.
So what's this one? Don't lean.
Uh, yeah, not literally, not partial, not leaning.
And then
I think Chung Nai Jo has of course, so this could be interpreted as the posture. You know, in other words, don't lean forward, don't lean backwards. I think in Chung Nai Jo, I think he uses it as an internal thing for in fact possibly the position of the Jin Dan, perhaps the central chi, uh, which I think is equivalent to the Jin Dan, to the golden elixir, and it suddenly abruptly hides itself and abruptly is revealed. Um,
yeah, interesting thing here that suddenly that these two would be related, that leaning and inclining would be related to suddenly revealing, suddenly hiding.
yeah, the thing is, um, well, as typical in a sort of very compressed classical text, um, there it leaves the potential interpretation wide open. So again, it in itself is the kind of quotation, I think, here. Not leaning, not partial, not leaning. Suddenly or abruptly hidden, abruptly revealed. Is this describing how you should practice, or is it describing, how the internal forces are at work? It's not.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I would say, just from my experience in practice, is that you can't not lean, because you're a human. And when you stand up, you're constantly readjusting, constantly, and it's an illusion that you can be still when you're standing up, especially if you're touching someone or touching something. It's an illusion, and if you can take control, this is again my view, you can take control of that illusion. You can suddenly appear and suddenly disappear. That's actually, it's a reversal. In other words, what you really want to do is practice a lot of leaning in all different directions. Otherwise, you won't understand what leaning is. But once you really do understand Dongjin, once you really understand what leaning is, then you can appear and disappear.
Right.
That would be my take. All right, what's this one? You want to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, I mean, one might think, left heavy, then left empty. Is it, one might suppose that one of those left should be a right, but it's not. It's, at least the way it's written,
right,
or understood, is left heavy, then left empty.
Yeah, it's
right
utterly
heavy,
counterintuitive,
then right.
Is what we're saying here. What you're
Sorry?
saying is that if you really read it straight, it's counterintuitive. It's the opposite of what you would think. You put your weight on something, you put your weight on it. You empty the other side. You put your weight on something, you empty the other side. But he's saying, no, when you put your weight on it, you empty that one. When you put your weight on it, then you empty that. When you put your weight on the left, empty the left. Empty the one you're weighting. And by this, you'll get an incredible power. That's what I understand to saying, and I've titled this power reverse rooting. It's the opposite of rooting. In fact, I would argue that when you touch someone, you empty their entire body into the ground via the process of reverse rooting. I think this is very clear, but I think it's also utterly counterintuitive. And I have tried to teach it to people and have yet to been able to teach it to anyone. At first, when I discovered this, I thought, wow, I better keep this a secret. I better keep it a secret. It's too powerful. But then I was too excited, and so I decided to teach it to people, and nobody can figure it out. Because I think I haven't done, again, this part, right? You actually have to understand how the breathing reverses and causes your legs to come inward.
Well, just on a very kind of mundane level. I mean, supposing you have your weight on your left foot and you throw a punch.
Yeah.
Then the rebound energy.
Yeah.
Is going to empty that same foot.
Yes.
So you punch out, and then what do you call it? That kind of rebound?
A drop step, or ground reaction force. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a kind of automatic, reversal. It's like a kick back.
Yep.
It's like action and reaction. I mean, automatically, as you throw the force out, it will drive back again.
Well,
Well,
that's certainly how you beat someone else.
there'll be a counter force.
Right. So in boxing, you want to hit the ground so that the reaction comes out your fist. Right.
Yeah.
Your that's the drop
Yeah,
step idea.
you don't. I mean,
You mobilize your whole mass and hit the ground at the moment
Yeah.
of contact to knock
Yeah.
them
It's like tsunami. I mean, you
out.
if you see the sea receding, you better run because it's going to come back.
But
You
if
know.
you have Tai Chi, you touch them very lightly, and at the moment they hit the ground, you just go like this, and they fly backwards
Yeah.
by their own force. That
Yeah.
would be the. All right.
Sure.
What about this one?
Now this is stolen again from the Neo-Confucian.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's actually a quotation from Confucius.
Okay.
That when you you go into the teaching or the principle of his philosophy, it's like it's so high that you cannot reach it, and you're so low you cannot touch it, and it's kind of, again, it's something, it's an all pervading, immanent kind of truth, if you like.
And this line is the same too, essentially.
It's almost like evangelistic, preaching. Yeah, it's just, it's like it's like like the divine. You're talking about the divine power, right? You cannot lay a hand on it.
So yeah. So it's like anything that goes high, I'm higher. I get higher because when anything that goes low, I get lower. Anything that goes forward, I get further. Anything that goes deep, I get deeper. Something like that. But of course, the pronouns aren't here. So, like you said, it's suggesting a kind of approach to knowledge.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, when you look up, it's still higher. You look down, it's still lower. And then, so I think that first part is from Confucius.
And then this is but this is
yeah, that continuation, that is something new, I think.
Yeah, but it's the same structure, right? Same, and it's you go forward, I'm further out, you go deeper, and I'm already, you go inside, or something like that. You go
you can't get away. I'm the more you kind of try and retreat, the more I will press in on you.
Or so but this is so it's making a joke, really, of the Confucian. If we think of it as Tai Chi, it's making a joke out of Jushi or Confucius, right? It's saying, hey, you thought that was a really cool, like, thing about the nature of knowledge, and it's like, no, I'm doing it, right? Yeah. And the scholars run away. They're like, ah.
Let's hope they have a sense of humor.
Right? I mean, it is a sense of humor if you think of it that way. It is making a joke out of this classic statement and then saying, look, I'm actually doing it. It's right here. It's thing you can have a direct experience of. And it's a magic trick, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean,
also argue.
It's almost blasphemous.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not, but it's depending.
But yeah, right.
On your point of view.
If your teacher or your fellow scholars have no sense of humor, sure. Let's hope they did have some sense of humor. Okay, so one feather cannot alight. That's a pretty famous statement. Yeah.
Yeah.
An insect. You have the insect here.
Yeah. It's literally one feather cannot be added or cannot be laid on top of it, right?
Yeah.
And a fly cannot take off or cannot land rather. Sorry,
Yeah, cannot land here.
a fly cannot land on you, or an insect could not land on you.
That's the feather.
Hmm.
It's a pretty big claim. I have the insect can't land. I mean, this is like you're incredibly, you know, one feather cannot be added. So that's an idea of like you cannot enter my body, right?
Hmm.
Um, like you touch. It's certainly a practice that we do. Like, can I put all of my weight on you with just one finger, right? Right, or just a couple of fingers, right? And so it's saying, if you do this practice, that can't happen to you. You can remain, you can touch but remain separate. And so then,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
Zheng Manqing used to say, don't put your meat on my shelf, as it were.
yeah,
Uh,
but you can try.
yeah, I mean, in pushing hands, that obviously he meant that you're kind of not sensitive. You're just laying your weight on me, and it's only because I'm such a nice guy, I'm not going to throw you
Yeah,
on your back.
yeah. But the advanced skill is I put all of my weight on you and you can't move. Right?
Right.
Freeze.
Yeah. People like Scott, so advanced.
Yeah, I'm definitely playing up my skills here. I feel like I've got the, what do you call it, the golden elixir, and
Hey.
also the pot of gold. I don't, I you know, I
That's
since
the
you
real
brought up the
gold.
modesty issue, Marnix, I'm not very good at that.
Right.
All
Well,
right.
you wouldn't really want to change yourself to gold, would you? Because you wouldn't be able to. It's like the miser, you couldn't eat gold, right?
That would be a disaster. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you better watch out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the image there, I believe, is that you go through, especially the Dalian image, is that you go through all the elements. You go through water, fire, earth, metal. Um,
Well, like alchemy,
yeah,
like the sort of so-called mystic alchemist. Yeah.
but I think you actually do it. You have wood, you have fire, you have metal. You have earth. You actually transmute your physical being as different elements, and this was used in the theater too for acting. And all the animals, you go through all the animals as a physicality, and they are also represent the different elements, so that you're working between animals and elements, and then you transmute the whole thing to those elements to a kind of liquid gold. It's not hard gold. It's a liquid gold. It's so you have all of the strength of metal, but you're completely fluid. I think that that's the description of the of as the physicality that that you have completely liquid, but you are like metal.
Mm.
Which
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, that's my take on it.
Do you do you feel that you've experienced that?
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just like it says up here, like you just suddenly it's all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly it's like, oh, it's all like that metal. So you feel uh you feel very, very strong. But as long as you don't apply it, you don't feel any resistance.
Mm.
As long as you don't use your force against, you won't feel it. But the
Mm.
it, and this is why I say, like, this issue of whether or not you use jinn or not is so important, because um, if you're developing that power, and to think of power to apply to someone, you will
Mm.
automatically become rigid. your metal will become hard. But if you never apply your metal to, if your metal is an internal to you, then when it interacts, it will remain liquid. If you don't let the fly, if you don't let a feather alight, that's why.
Do you practice listen to say the Xingyi, like the five
Well,
five elements? Or
I I do
agents?
Xinyi. I do the Xinyi. I do the Liu He Xinyi, the Muslim style actually, which is also golden elixir. Working on an interview with some Sufi Muslim Chinese, by the way. But yeah, it's
Do they do the five agents like the?
it's in there, but they emphasize the elements more. But the same
What do you mean the
concept is
Western?
there.
Or what we know in this European four elements? You mean?
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, if you're asking, it's a sidetrack, but if you're asking about the Muslim practice,
Yeah.
I believe that, well, I don't know enough, and that's why I'm trying to do an interview about it. It's a confusing issue, but it does seem to me that what they do is they combine the animals. In Liu Xing, you combine the animals to get like new types of animals, and I think that they were in fact doing, they were doing something very similar to the Chinese tradition of thunder gods. So they're creating these gods that are actually combinations of different kinds, or the thunder generals. They're different kinds of animals. So you have a part bear, part hawk, and that the elixir, rather than two abstract elements like wood and fire, you're actually creating these as
But of course, in Islam, I mean, polytheism is totally condemned.
Yes, yeah. That's a very complicated issue, and that's why I need better informants. But it does seem to me that the Sufis were quite comfortable with practicing some kind of golden elixir, and of course, the word alchemy comes from Arabic. So let's not forget.
That's right. That's right. And yes, that's the
the
origin of chemistry.
yeah the word yeah. So but to answer your question, the Daoyin I learned from both my teacher Liu Ming and from Polly Zink, both use the elements extensively as a cosmological way of organizing the golden elixir as a practice.
The five elements, or the five
Yeah,
agents.
yeah.
Wishing.
Yeah, or four. Yeah. But,
Huh?
yeah, there's another organization that uses four, but yes, generally five in the Chinese.
Yeah, I mean the Chinese, of course, have the center as the fifth element, if you like, and but the European model does not. It just has the four, and if it's like a non-Chinese system, it would probably have the four.
Right. That's what. That's a whole nother conversation. Let's do this next one.
I mean, like Buddhism would probably have the four.
That's right. So I think there's an interaction there, and I think you have versions, because Daoyin gets shifted over to Shaolin. So I think there's some play there. There's some versions that have four, some that have five. But certainly Polly Zink's system is very five oriented, and is very integrated with the theater in that sense. You want to have a metal element, or a fire element. All right. All right, I could do it here. I'll take this off for a second. Do the faces. The fire element. Hi, I am here to share my wisdom. Like, you are not going to do it. you know, the metal, right? You know, it creates characters, right? The elements create characters. Or the wood, hi, I'm very helpful for you today. I am a wood element. Or water, you know. So what is it's carp mouth. It
That,
doesn't do very well with a beard, but
yeah, they could
oh,
be coordinated with colors, different colors.
with the painting, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah.
the red for fire, and black for water, and so on.
We were almost done. We were so close. We're so close.
Black and blue, I think, would go together,
Black and
unless
blue.
it, unless it's, but
Yeah,
maybe
black is loyalty and blue is cruelty, right? So you see it on Cao Cao, the uh, the evil general from the Three Kingdoms,
is it okay?
and also white.
Yeah, white is death usually, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very,
so
it's like metal.
yeah, so the bad, but also you see like the clowns all have a white circle here.
Hmm.
Um, so it means sort of dumb or naive, I think also. It that's a whole thing into itself. Very very elaborate cosmology for sure. But yeah, you usually see if you look at for instance, Guan Yu is usually red and black, right? So red for anger and black for loyalty.
Or particularly black.
Yeah,
Um, again, it goes with the north direction, north quadrant, and water.
yeah. All right, what do we got here? The oh, this is such an important current. He, he doesn't know me, I know him, something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
How would you translate it?
Um,
This is don't. This is no. This is to know. This is jur.
which, yeah, the ren, of course, literally man or men, uh, refers to other. It could be translated as
Yeah.
others,
The other
other
doesn't know
people,
me.
other people. When it's in opposition to I or war,
Yeah.
it means yeah. So others don't know me,
And
but
I
I know
alone know.
others. I know other
I
people.
alone know them or something.
Yeah, and so it calls to mind Sun Tzu, Art of War. Um, know. Um, how does it go? uh, if you know yourself and you know others, then 100 battles you will be victorious. Something like that. Uh, 知彼知己，百战无败. So you won't be defeated. Sorry, it's literally the original one. It doesn't say you'll be victorious. Actually, it says you will not be defeated.
Well, it's a strategic. It's a strategic concept there too, right? So again, it's like a kind of key strategic idea that if I if I understand the workings of my opponent's, um, you know, uh, like if I have good information, right,
Mm-hmm.
about who they are and what 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 kind of army and weapons they
Yeah,
have, that's I can beat
that's the
them.
key. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's military intelligence,
yeah,
and that's why deception is such a big part of strategy, because that will well it means that they think they know, but what they know is wrong. So
so
it's
you
like they don't know.
right. Well, Doubted Jing makes fun of this too. You know, and it's like uh, uh, 知知知不知, you know, knowing not knowing is, you know,
Mm.
is best.
Yeah,
Um, thinking not
it's
knowing is knowing is really not knowing. It's really a disease or something like that, right?
Well, yeah, if you know that you do not know, then that's knowing.
Yeah.
If you think you know, you don't know.
Yeah, so it's all
So
of this is implied here, right? All of that. If you're a literate person and you read and
yeah,
you see that word knowing applied as this kind of pivotal term, you're automatically going to think of the Tao Te Ching. You're going to think of Confucius saying, I know what I know. Not knowledge. Knowing is knowing what you know and what you don't know. You're going to think of all of these things.
yeah, that's right.
And what I would add that again, George Shu uses this almost as a single word, as an adjective or as a verb. Or he actually would say, an I know you, you don't know me situation. When I touch you, there's an I know you, you don't know me situation.
Hmm.
Right? He almost uses it like a single word.
Yeah, that's right. It's like you can't escape. You know where you live. It's like, right.
Exactly. Like that's
Uh,
like the
uh,
cell phone, right? It's the Amazon knows all of your purchases. Yeah.
yeah, like Big Brother.
All right.
um, but yeah, so
Daka,
it's
right?
like pushing
Cell
hands.
phone is
You
called
can you sense where the guy is, but they can't sense you. You have a sensor, but but they haven't.
I couldn't help pointing out the term for cell phone, the slang term for cell phone in in Chinese is da ge. It's big brother. Right?
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Shoji, I guess, hand machine, but da ge is the like big brother is there's a great sense of humor. There's a great sense of
Yeah, I wish I could find it funny.
humor.
It's a little bit too near the bone, I might
Oh,
say.
come on, give it up, Marnix. Fascism is the new future.
I
All right, what
hear
do you think about the next line here?
I saw there's a new book out called Every Breath You Take.
Yeah, well, they've got the Fitbit monitoring us
What?
now. They've got the Fitbit you can put on and monitor your breathing and your heart rate and have it mailed, have it digitally sent out to all your friends and of course they're
Have you read
tracking.
1984?
Of course, yeah, maybe many times. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one might wish it were not so, but I'm afraid it's where we're heading.
You think we passed it already?
Well, yeah.
Jumped over it.
Well, we might think we have, but don't be too sure. Scott.
All right, what's this last line of this paragraph? Is there anything here of interest?
Yeah, this obviously is another quotation. I mean, this thing is riddled with quotations, as we've
Yeah.
seen. I forget whether I know where this is from. It's like wherever the hero goes, he has no opposition or no effective opposition. So, in other words, he is matchless.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to be a hero, this is how to get it.
And then,
Pay your dues, and 10 years down the line, sure thing, you got it. Just make sure that you don't miss a payment. Is that how you operate, Scott?
yeah, definitely. I want people to pay me in advance. That's pretty important. Yeah.
I mean that's the way, that's the modern way of business, right? It's not the one-off. It's like the repeat payment.
Well, all right. We have the 4 ounces moves 1,000 pounds in this section here, and then we get to the fun stuff here. I don't think we're going to get through this, but
I think we've missed a paragraph, have we?
yeah, I just decided to skip it. What do you think? Is it
Okay.
important? Do you think this
Yeah.
one's
All right.
important?
Yeah. Um,
To
yeah.
strike without strength.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, there's this
Um,
character again. This is an important character, right?
yeah, this sort of dynamic. Um, it could be. It could be like the postures or the styles. Um, yeah. Okay, we can skip if you like. We can skip this
Yeah, I
one.
mean
It's
the 4 ounces. We have the quote: 4 ounces moves 1,000 pounds. Do it is this,
mm,
but it's quite famous. Um,
yeah.
but
So of course he actually kind of uh, this is the equivalent to ancient Chinese quotation marks
mhm.
because although the Chinese may not have had these marks originally, but he says when he says this sentence or this phrase, it means that he's referring to some other text. Uh, the question is, we don't have this. We don't have the text he's referring to.
Yeah, I mean, there is some quote about money somewhere, like that. It could be referring to 4 ounces, 4 coins, or something like that. I've heard that explanation. Um,
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of measure, a weight, and I guess it was originally a weight of perhaps silver, and but in this case, it just means an ounce,
yeah,
uh, uh, and 1,000, 4 ounces against 1,000 pounds.
right. And obviously,
Uh,
you can't do this with strength, right? Something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. This is so you can do it by leverage. Um, so
Or
if you talk,
illusion.
so he goes on to say, stand like a level balance,
Yeah,
which
down
is again
here.
is
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's again it's a metaphor of a scales, a weighing scale, and
Well,
you could have an arm so that you know with a long arm with the leverage of a long arm
so
you could a small weight could
stand like a scale, spin like the wheel of a cart, something like
yeah
that. Um,
that's right
the thing that came to me the other day, I mean, it's sort of obvious, but I was thinking about it. It's like, you know, the metaphor in the West of a scale is that of symmetry, right? We put our heart at death, we put our heart on a scale and we weigh it against a feather. Are you ready
oh
for
like
that?
in the like ancient Egyptians
Yeah. Are you ready for that, Mark? Yeah, but you see it throughout Christianity too as a metaphor. Um, and and
well,
and, and justice also. Justice is a scale where you put
mm,
and so we have like, okay, you want to weigh this object, put a different standard weight on there until we see how much it weighs, right?
mhm,
That's the Western approach to scale. The Chinese is a single weight, and they move the pivot point right along a stick. So
mm,
the concept of a scale is not of even match. It's the concept of proportionality, right? Or as you put it, leverage. But it's also it's always ratios. It's a balanced asymmetry.
mm. Well they translate the weight into the length of their stick which is calibrated and so they get the same result. But
Yes,
yeah, as you
yeah.
point out, they use a different sort of method.
But this being a well, so this could be not a metaphor. Perhaps it's not a metaphor, but I think it's at least an analogy so that people understand the concept of counterbalancing. But it's it with the counterbalance concept, you don't you're working with ratios. You're not working with even matched weights. You don't counterbalance with the exact same weight. You counterbalance with, or you use the same weight continuously, which is your weight, but
Mm.
you're changing the ratio in order to
Mm.
get the effect.
Yeah. Well, it's a kind of mobile scales, because if you're a sort of street hawker, you're not going to carry around a whole bag of weights. But if you can do the same thing with a calibrated stick and just one weight, then you do.
Yeah.
And they're pretty smart.
It's brilliant. Well, I was at your house and you showed me also that the gujin, right? Or sorry,
Yeah,
the gujin, the instrument, which is, has the silk strings, and you can divide the octaves. You can divide the string in half, or
yeah,
divide it in thirds or in fifths to get
yeah,
the perfect ratios of the tone of the string.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
similar idea.
The Guqin is divided according to the mathematical proportions, which correspond to the natural harmonic series in nature, and so if yeah, I mean these are obviously not a scale, but that you could they can use it as a way to figure out a scale from those points. But you have to, in some cases, the notes may correspond. In other cases, you have to figure it out somewhere in between. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of my point there is that you can that how you conceptualize something, you can't do a direct. But my point here is you can't do a direct translation and say it means a scale. You have to understand that it's actually talking about proportionality in
Yeah,
relationship to mass, which is
yeah,
um
true.
and and moving like the wheel of a cart that's just in all directions, or uh, we have the image of the cart. Of course, you can't do this without thinking of the Tao Te Ching, which says what makes the wheel of a cart work is the empty space in the middle that makes the wheel work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Also, the idea that there's an axle um,
Mm.
that uh, that is the fixed axle. Um,
Mm. Mm.
so something has to be very, very stable
Mm.
in order for that to work. We had some more on that. I can't remember what else we came up with. Do you remember?
About the axle.
Yeah.
Well, the Tai Chi is kind of the axis uh, of the universe or galaxy or whatever solar system. And yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure how the pole star or the pole I don't know how it sort of corresponds to the galaxy. Um, I mean, obviously the Earth appears to go around that axis. Whether it actually corresponds to any point in extrastellar space, um, I don't know.
I
I mean,
I
it's obviously always pointing in the same direction. That's how we know where north is. Um, Interesting.
You have to have some orientation. I would possibly argue here that there's a concept of horizontality. So this concept here is about is about um, forces moving in and out to create leverage. So two bodies moving this way, two bodies moving this way, and you like the waltz, you spin, or like or like a tango, you spin this way, or minuet, you spin this way, right? Because we have these traditions in the West too of using counterbalance force for dancing and fighting. So they're you can orient falling together or falling toward each other. This is the goat power, or leaning away to create for judo throws. And these can be more or less dynamic, and they also rotate. But I would also suggest that the wheels of a cart are something else. The wheels of a cart takes a stationary object and moves in the horizontal plane because of a wheel.
Yeah.
And um, I think it's actually describing an illusion that you can create here in the horizontal plane that people will misperceive because of because of the way our vestibular system works in horizontals and verticals. There's an illusion where you can be like a cart moving in. It just seems like you're like nothing is happening, but actually the wheel is turning underneath or something like that. Anyway, it would have it. What does it really show? We would have to show or be shown what it actually means, but it's a metaphor. It has a lot of potential.
When you're sitting on the cart, you're not moving, but you are moving, at least.
Yeah. Right, and there's
the
an
wheels
illusion.
are turning.
There's an illusion, or
Well,
like the elevator illusion. Everybody knows. Well, we know the cart illusion too, right? You're going, you don't notice that you're moving until you slow down or speed up. And the same thing with an elevator. It just feels like you're there, and then suddenly you slow down because you feel everything move, and you go down. You're thinking, it goes down. You don't feel anything. Then it gets into the bottom. Because our vestibular system doesn't track velocity. It only tracks changes in velocity. So
it's relative. Yeah, it's relative. The next one is difficult.
This one?
Well, maybe not. I mean, it's just like if you press down one side, then the other will follow. If you press down on both sides, then it's gonna get stuck.
Right. But this is the double weighted expression, right?
Yeah.
So if you press down, say it again. If you press down one side,
if there's a partial sinking, literally, then something follows. In other words, if one side goes down, then the other will follow. If it's a double weighting, then there is kind of it gets stuck.
Yeah. So it's like if you have two forces here against each other, and one collapses in a wave, it will send the other one out. Right. So a single force like that. But if all the forces this way, nothing moves. Something like that.
Yeah. In pushing hands, they talk about the donyo. It's like two bulls, sort of head to head. So they're both pushing, and neither is moving, because they're both kind of force against force, and so in effect, there's a kind of stalemate. Whereas what you want is to get movement, and that's not the way to do it.
My take on this is that the first line is referring to the sense that it's an illusion, presumably, but that my mass can move under certain conditions. I can have the experience of my mass moving outside the body, and will cause a sudden explosion, causing the other person to move. And it has to do with how it has to do with sinking, but it's not direct sinking down. It's sinking out over your feet, or in some direction. There's a number of different ways to do it, but the sinking down effect will cause a sudden wave action. And the other one, this I think is, I'm pretty sure that this concept means that I put all of my weight on you, and so there you weigh me and you're double weighted, and that if you're and therefore you're stuck, you're frozen, because you're carrying all of my weight. So that's
Well, yeah. But both parties are stuck, aren't they?
both parties. Well, but there's some ambiguity here. We both at least would agree with that. That's an interesting point.
Yes. Yes, as usual, there's ambiguity.
Because I think both explanations are plausible. Should we? The next line is long. I think we should let it go and just remember that we're here and come back and talk again. Don't you?
Yeah,
think
sure.
pretty good.
Yeah, I think we've earned our supper now.
It looks like
even dinner, I think.
The sun is setting for you.
Can you send me a dinner?
I can now.
Will Amazon do that?
Yeah, I could do that for you, Mark. I don't know what you want to eat.
No, don't worry.
I just had my coffee.
I'm not going hungry today. Thank you.
As always, a great pleasure talking to you, and thank you. I think that was really productive. I think it was a good talk. I really enjoyed it. So, thank you.
Okay, I've been digging around my library, seeing what else I've got. So, if we ever get through the classics,
I do think, I don't know if you're game to dig in a little bit, but that text I showed you about Jun Wu, the alternative text that Hannibal pointed out to me, an alternative text describing that the murals are based on, of Jun Wu's
yeah,
life.
that was interesting. Yeah,
I would like to dig into that text, see if we can find.
It's a little bit long.
Yeah, it's a bit long. It's not. We're not going to go word at a time, but
all right.
We might find a paragraph we could translate, something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Zaijian.
Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Hey, if you like that video, don't forget to subscribe and watch the other ones. Also, check out my book, Tai Chi Bagua and the Golden Elixir, Internal Martial Arts Before the Boxer Uprising. And you can also find me at northstarmartialarts.com. Thanks.